Good evening, everybody. Can I just apologise for the delay? We have got technical problems which we're trying to sort out, but we'll commence the planning committee shortly. Thank you. Just to update you, the problem is streaming this live to the public. We'll see if we can resolve it, but if we can't, we'll carry on with the meeting. Stop. I'm just told it's all sorted, so ignore my last instruction. Right, everybody, I'm going to commence the meeting. Can I say, firstly, welcome to the members and the members of the public for coming to tonight's January Planning Committee meeting. I'm the chairman, Councillor Bob Cope, and if I can introduce the other colleagues on the top table, starting with my vice chairman, who is
Councillor Robert Duncan, Vice Chair for Planning Committee.
Sam Nor Highways Development, Staffs County Council.
Joanne Barnes, also Staffs County Council Highways Department.
Hardeep Sharma, Solicitor to the Planning Committee.
Helen Bembo, Development Management Team Manager.
Kelly Harris, Lead Planning Manager.
Mike Brown, Assistant Team Manager for Strategic Projects.
Jessica Allsop, Senior Planning Officer.
Imogen Hopkins, Senior Planning Officer.
Thank you. Can I, before we start, just ask, can you show respect to this procedure, please? You'll hear people for and against the applications. Please don't shout out and please show respect for the proceedings. Thank you. So I go straight into the committee meeting, which is part one. Item number one is the minutes of the last meeting. Members, you've all had a chance to read them. Do you agree they're a true record? Thank you. Item two, apologies. I haven't had any apologies. Any apologies? Apologies, Councillor Helen Adams and Councillor Harper Wallace. Item three, are there any declarations of interest in the room? No. So item four, we proceed with the determination of the planning applications. And the first one on the agenda is 24/01088/FULM. And this is the land off Poolhouse Road, Womburn. I believe, Imogen, you're outlining the application for everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So this application seeks approval for 92 dwellings to the north of Poolhouse Road in Womburn. The site has been safeguarded for housing within the Council's site allocations document and is included within the emerging local plan. The proposal includes 55 market homes and 37 affordable homes, which secures 40% affordable housing in line with current planning policy. The Strategic Housing Officer has advised the affordable housing provision is acceptable and that there is an appropriate housing mix which has evolved throughout the application process. The latest 5-year housing land supply position for the Council from April 2025 states that a supply of 0.87 years can be demonstrated. As such, the tilted balance is engaged. And the Council need to ensure the delivery of dwellings in the most appropriate locations, especially in relation to sustainable development. As this site has been identified through the site allocations document and the emerging local plan, it is an acceptable location for housing development. Core Policy 1 categorises Womburn as a main service village, and the site is in walking distance to a range of facilities within Womburn, with access to bus stops in the wider area. The proposal secures an appropriate design and has been amended over the course of the application to have a density of 35.4 dwellings per hectare, which is acceptable in relation to the character of the site and to make an effective use of land. The siting of the dwellings would not result in loss of privacy by way of loss of amenity by way of privacy or overshadowing to the existing dwellings at the southwest of the site due to the size of the existing and future size of the gardens, of the existing and future occupiers, and there will be no intervisibility between windows in line with Appendix 6 of the core strategy. As you'll see on the update sheet, it is proposed to have an additional condition relating to obscure glazing of first floor side-facing bathroom windows. It is noted there's a minor shortfall in relation to amenity of future occupiers and proposals, but these are explained within the report and are considered acceptable on balance. So overall, the application secures an appropriate level of amenity for future occupiers of the dwellings alongside the existing dwellings that surround the site. There are no objections from technical consultees, such as the Council Tree Officer, Conservation Officer or Ecologist, nor are there any from the County Council as the lead local flood authority or the Highways Authority, who have all recommended the application be approved subject to conditions. As outlined again within the update sheet, there will be an additional clause within the section 106 to ensure the signalisation of the Bridgnorth Road is undertaken to satisfy the Highways Authority, and this is also consistent with the adjacent planning application. So the application site is adjacent to a separate planning application for 121 dwellings sited to the northeast, which is the other side of a public right of way. That received a resolution to grant by planning committee on the 23rd of September 2025, and section 106 negotiations are ongoing. The current proposal has 2 links towards the public right of way, which separates the sites to get some connectivity between the sites. So this application is recommended for approval subject to conditions and the signed section 106 agreement to secure appropriate infrastructure, including affordable housing, healthcare provision, on-site public open space, improvements to the Brickbridge Lane bus stop, a highways travel plan contribution and the signalisation of the Bridgnorth Road. So if we just go through the presentation, please, Helen. So there's some pictures along Poolhouse Road. Next one, please. Just looking into the site there. That's the red line boundary. So you can see there the sites to the southeast are the neighbours that could be most affected. And then the wider Wombourne area to the south. The next one, please, Helen. So that's just an aerial view of the site, and then that's the curved line to the northeast is the public right of way, and the other field to the east is the site that's been approved by committee in September of last year. Next one, please. This is the site layout, which I appreciate is a bit small on that screen. And then the next one, please, Helen. There's some street scene drawings. So the top elevation is the Pool House Road elevation. The middle one is the road as you come through the site. And then the bottom one is the view of the most northern edge of the site. So yeah, that's all for my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Imogen. Tonight we have speakers speaking for and against. The first speaker speaking against is Mr. Ian Hawkins. Can you go to the lectern, please? Mr. Hawkins, you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Ian Hawkins. I'm a resident of Pool House Road in Wombourne. I speak on behalf of a number of Wombourne residents, and we object to this application. It is our view that it would be irresponsible for the plans to be approved, especially with so many unanswered questions within the planning officer's report. Generally, there are many negative impacts to the development that are unknown, and further investigations are required before this committee is able to fully consider the proposals. I am unable to cover all of these in the allotted 5 minutes, but will cover as many as I can. There are many comments within the planning officer's report which state that planning requirements are not met. However, it is also stated within the project as a whole that this is acceptable. We would question how many unmet requirements would deem the development to be unacceptable. Surely planning regulations and guidance has specific requirements for a reason, and it is our belief that as these requirements should be met without being subject to a level of acceptable failure. It is our view that it is impossible to look at this specific development in isolation. This Taylor Wimpey development and the neighbouring Lovell developments need to be considered together with regards to the impact upon the local environment. Transport. Between the developments, there will be 213 new properties and an estimated 277 additional cars. None of these properties are adequately served by public transport, and thus there is no alternative but for these houses to increase traffic flow significantly and add to the impact of climate change. The planning officer's report claims that the development is in a sustainable location due to a bus stop being 900 metres away. This is nonsense. The standard planning distance recommendations is that the property should be 400 metres from a bus stop. We argue that Wombourne is not served well by public transport, and the new estate, along with the hundreds of existing properties on the Pool House estate, continue to be failed by this. The planned developments are a missed opportunity to improve the public transport in Wombourne. Thus, the plan should not be approved without this being rectified. Flooding. Pool House Road has been subject to increased flooding, causing traffic issues. It has repeatedly been stated by the local authority that this is due to block culverts and drainage, but clearing these has not improved the situation. The topography of the land and the additional development will result in a reduction in natural drainage, regardless of the mitigation plans. Thus will cause additional water to flow onto Pool House Road, causing additional flooding. There will also be a significant risk that properties in Brindley Close will be subject to a direct flooding due to this. Until the flooding issues can be successfully resolved, it is impossible to approve the development as the subsequent flood risk is too great. Contamination. The planning officer's report suggests that the developer will have to deal with any issues regarding contamination if they are discovered. Due to the proximity of the former landfill site and also the belief among long-standing Wombourne residents that this land was used as a dumping ground, investigations should be carried out before any planning approval is given. This is something that also benefits the developer, as any contamination is a known quantity before the development commencing. Housing style. The planning officer's report states that housing density is acceptable and that housing style is in keeping with the surrounding area. On the basis that the development is immediately neighboured by houses on Pool House Road, it is blatantly apparent that the housing is not in keeping with the surrounding area, and in fact the location of smaller, densely packed housing that directly neighbours the existing properties shows the stark contrast. Arboricultural survey. Section 6.163.4 states that an arboricultural method statement and tree protection plan should be submitted and approved by the planning officer prior to any development. Why has this not been done to date, and why is it not provided prior to planning approval? From the plan submitted, it would appear that there is a single large oak tree retained within the development area. This oak tree will overshadow 2 properties and their gardens and is surely at future risk. In addition, the tree roots will affect the build or the tree. It is our request that this oak tree is provided with protected status and that the properties that are in its shadow are removed from the plan. In summary, there are too many unresolved issues for the committee to approve the application. We would appeal to the committee to consider this and therefore reject the application in its current format. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. You were almost 5 minutes. Well done. Right, can I ask, we've got one speaker speaking for the application. That's Mr. Tom Higgins. Can you go to the lectern, please? Thank you. Okay. Can you hang on, please, Mr. Higgins? Ellen wants to make a comment as regards what was just said. Thank you.
Mr. Higgins, we've got the slide available for you that you requested. So would you like me to show that at the end of your presentation or while you're speaking? Is that okay? You won't be able to see the timer, so do you want me to give you a 30-second warning? No problem.
Okay, thanks for resolving that. So you have 5 minutes, Mr. Higgins. Thank you.
You may recall that I spoke at your meeting in September last year regarding the plans to build 121 new homes in the fields next to this site. I expressed my worries that HGVs carrying bricks, concrete and other building materials would travel past 2 primary schools and a high school, which have in the region of 1,600 pupils. The schools are shown in yellow stars. I asked that the route for construction vehicles be discussed with Womben North councillors and was informed County Highways as professionals will be consulted. With respect, I believe that local members have more detailed knowledge of the day-to-day traffic issues on their patch, and I ask once again that they be contacted for comment. We also raised concerns about the distance residents of new homes would have to walk to the nearest bus stop. One of the members for Codswell said she used to live in Womben many years ago and knew the site was within walking distance of a stop. Part of tonight's report reads, the nearest bus stops are on Planks Lane, approximately 950 to 1 kilometre from the site, equating to a 12 to 15 minute walk. I think that's probably for a fit adult walking on level ground, not carrying shopping bags. The report continues, while this distance slightly exceeds the County Council's recommended maximum walking distance to public transport, it is still considered acceptable. Last September, I said that a County Highways officer had previously indicated policy requirements are that bus stops should be located no more than 350 metres from the furthest house. And Active Travel England advised most buildings within the application should be within 400 metres of a high frequency bus stop. Pedestrian routes should be safe, direct and accessible for people of all abilities. Last September, I also highlighted one of the 3 golden rules. In the revised NPPF, specifies that development proposals must include plans for improving local infrastructure. New housing projects should come with commitments to enhance transport links to support the increased population and activity in the area, recognising that local leaders are best placed to identify the infrastructure that their communities need. I had hoped that a site visit would help members realise the difficult walk to the bus stops from this development. The route takes in a 450-metre length of Jiggity Lane, which has no footways on either side. There's a 6-metre difference in level from the top of Pool House Road down to Planks Lane. The road is treacherous in icing conditions due to the waters of one brook flowing through the Ford crossing. I can't see how a 1 kilometre walk to a bus stop is reasonable or balanced compared to a 350 to 400 metre walk, particularly for an elderly person, someone with a disability, or someone pushing a pram or a wheelchair. The report mentions the applicant has explored the potential to reroute an existing bus service to extend to this development. However, current timetables have no flexibility to accommodate a diversion, and doing so would affect services elsewhere in Womben. The developer proposes to improve some bus stops in the area, but this does nothing to reduce the excessive walk to the nearest stops. West Midlands Combined Authority has very recently commenced the process of taking over control of running bus services from National Express. In the coming months, they will be deciding routes and fares. I therefore respectfully request this committee to approve a further condition to require the developer to meet with members for Womben North and South, together with appropriate authorities, with a view to providing a much needed bus service. This would benefit residents of the more than 200 homes to be built in this area, in addition to the 400 or so existing properties on the large estate south of Pool House Road. Thank you. I'm just trying to work out now where Jiggity Lane is on that site, on that plan. You've got the 3 schools in Stars.
Can I say you're out of time now, I'm afraid.
Okay.
So would you sit down, please? Thank you. Next, we have the applicant agent speaking, and that's Sarah Butterfield from Pegasus. She's the agent. Thank you. You have 5 minutes as well. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm speaking this evening on behalf of Taylor Wimpey, who is seeking planning permission for the development of 92 dwellings, including affordable housing, plus access, open space, children's play and associated infrastructure on land at Pool House Road, Wombourne. Wombourne is a main service village, which is considered a suitable location for additional development and growth, as set out in the development plan. That settlement hierarchy and identification of suitable and sustainable locations for development also accords with the NPPF, which seeks to deliver sustainable development in suitable locations, which makes efficient use of land. Wombourne provides a range of services and facilities and is accessible via a number of bus services. It is a sustainable location that can accommodate growth, and this therefore accords with the NPPF. With reference to the development of the application site, this is the site that was removed from the Greenbelt in the site allocations document and identified as suitable for residential development as a safeguarded site to meet development needs. The site is now a proposed draft allocation in the emerging South Staffordshire local plan for residential development. However, the current development plan is out of date for the purposes of policies relating to the supply of land for housing. The council is unable to demonstrate a 5-year supply of land for housing, and the presumption in favour of sustainable development in the NPPF is therefore engaged. Limited weight should be given to current policies on the safeguarding of the land and locational policies for housing land supply. The proposals would deliver 92 dwellings, 37 of which 40% would be affordable. The proposed housing mix is considered to accurately reflect local housing need, and 10 bungalows are proposed, which also meets policy requirements. This is all supported by the council's housing officer. The proposed 37 affordable homes would also be policy compliant in terms of 10-year split, and that split and mix is also supported by the council's housing officer. Whilst the proposed development would result in a change to the context in which the site is viewed through introduction of development on a currently greenfield site, these impacts will be limited and localised and should be considered in the round and in context. The site would sit adjacent to existing development, including additional development to the east, and is a cohesive and logical extension to the village. Development can be suitably mitigated through a robust landscape strategy, and overall any landscape impacts would be limited. The proposed site layout is considered acceptable. The design proposes dwellings that deliver a mix of finishes and housing types which relate well to surrounding developments in a residential layout that will deliver an appropriate density of development. The development predominantly complies with all design standards for parking, garden sizes and space, and meets all requirements for overlooking distances to both proposed and existing properties as set out in your officer's report. The orientation of the site and the sun's path from east to west means there would be no overbearing impact and at worst very limited overshadowing from any proposed development to the properties on Poole House Road. The site will provide on-site open space, including play facilities and play on the way, and will link to the adjacent public right-of-way and beyond, whilst footpath improvements will be delivered to improve access to the centre of Wombourne Village. The site is also accessible through bus services, with bus stops approximately a 10-minute walk from the centre of the site on Plank Lane. In addition, the development will deliver upgrades to existing bus stops, which provide access to high-frequency services, and the Highways Authority have no objection to the proposals. The speed limit on Poole House Road will be reduced to 30 miles an hour, and the development will also deliver other highways improvements, including traffic calming measures. Sufficient parking provision is provided, and the Highways Authority have no objection to the proposed development. As set out in your officer's report, all technical matters are being considered and addressed through the application process. There were no outstanding technical matters which would prevent planning permission being granted, and no outstanding objections from any statutory consultees. The proposed development would also deliver a range of Section 106 and financial obligations towards healthcare, bus stop and highways improvements for vehicles and pedestrians, as well as delivering on-site affordable housing, open space and BNG. In summary, the proposed development would deliver 92 residential dwellings, policy compliant affordable housing, and would significantly boost housing land supply in South Staffordshire in a sustainable location. There are no harms arising that would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits, and therefore planning permission should be granted. We would ask you to support the proposal in line with your officer's recommendation to grant planning permission, subject to conditions and the completion of a Section 106 agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Next, I'm going to the ward member, which is Councillor Merrick. Could you go to the lectern, please? Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Vince Merrick. I'm the ward member for Wombourne South. Come here tonight to actually back the residents who've come forward with everything they've said. But there are two parts that really need to be noted by you as councillors, because it's coming to you as well. Whatever. I am the police liaison officer for the parish. For years now, I've just been battling the traffic. Poole House Lane outside the school. Recently, the school had a development. We had to have banksmen, marshals. We had to apply to the school to help, and it's further going on with us going to them to ask them to help. It's absolute chaos past the school. The two parts that I'd like you to note, as because I'm not going to reiterate everything that the residents have said. The two parts to note, bear with me. The main one for me would be the area is not served by public transport, full stop, where the development is, full stop. It's taxi or walk, nothing else. there's already complaints, like I've just told you, about how I'm working with the police to stop the HGVs coming up past the school. Obviously, we'd ask for you to note that the traffic has to come in and exit out onto the Bridge North Road and not through the centre of Womburn, which cannot cope at all now. Never mind then. I'll just a quick word to the committee. Bear with me these words that I've asked you to note, because we'll be coming back, maybe not here, but we'll be coming back to discuss it at future meetings. And we don't want to be saying, well, I told you so. We told you. I think that's about it. And I must say thank you for the committee to let me come in and for the last few minutes of a short speech of just truth. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Adams, do you want to take a seat? Do you want to take your seat? No, sit. Right, members, you've heard all the deliberations. So does anybody want to speak on this application? Please show. Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Chair. Just a few points. I'm looking at the extra list that was sent to us. Just to ask the officer first, and has the 106 agreement been sorted and signed off yet? And it also, is there section 278 being agreed, as the road needs a few improvements? And as it states, it does state that highways matters does not meet the test of planning conditions in relation to being rational for the application. However, the applicant is outlined willingness to enter into a section 106 agreement. There's a few things that need to be addressed in this to sort it out before we go any further. And the other issue is the bus stop. It does state in the requirements it should be 350 metres.
Who wants to take that?
I can take that, Chairman. The section 106 has been drafted and it's currently negotiation, but the other point is that there's the highways clause which needs to be added in and drafted as well. In terms of section 278 agreements, that will be outside of the planning permission. I don't know whether you want to add anything on the legal.
Yes, Chair, just from a legal perspective, a section 106 agreement is not signed before the planning committee. The planning committee consider the application, they look at the terms of the section 106 agreement, and if it's approved, then the heads of terms are actually negotiated. And that can take, a while. I simply make that point, that you haven't got your section 106 agreement because it will happen after the resolution.
To come back.
Please, Chair. I can't see on the developments, if you could bring the map back up, where is the actual community park for the residents and the children with play equipment and that? And where is the nearest one to it?
So within the middle of the site, there's a small local play area, and then the area to the north has got a walking route with a play on the way scheme proposed.
Can we enlarge that just to see? Yeah.
You will have seen this. Every member did have the chance to see it.
Okay.
If you look on your computer, you'll find it went out to every member.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Do you want to carry on?
Yeah, just a couple of little points. The SUDs for the flooding issue, where are they? Because I can't see many on the development to prevent that sort of issue.
Yep, future. It's to the north again. So there's on the left-hand side of that plan, that's where the Pernle Way is and the walking route. On the right-hand side of the top part, that's the attenuation basin. So that's all in the north sort of section of the development.
So what about the, as I say, southern part where Pool House is?
Yeah, the LFA have checked over the proposal and they're happy with it in terms of it drains the correct way and that's the appropriate position for it.
And my last point, Chair, is there any movement regarding the sewerage issue? Because we know Womben is one of the areas of that is at capacity.
That's a Severn Trent matter, so we not got any input in that.
Okay. Any more questions, please? Comments from members? Anybody wish to speak? No? Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Chairman. It's with regard to sustainable travel. The statement is approximately 900 metres from the centre of the site to the nearest bus stop. So if you live at the top of the site, obviously I don't know the area. I don't know whether that's further away than the nearest bus stop, so I haven't got the local knowledge. But if it is, that's probably 1200 metres.
Councillor Steele, for clarity, I'm going to ask Highways to make comment on that.
Because I've heard conflicting information, like 350 metres is a limit. Well, that's nearly 3 times as far, so I'd like some explanation, please.
Okay. Can you answer this, please, Highways?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it is further than we would like to see a bus service, but it's not just the requirement of the distance, it's also the service that you walk into. We did have plenty of discussions regarding this, whether we could put the service up there past the Pool House Road development. Unfortunately, it'd be at the detriment to what the existing service is. Now, the existing service that we've got on Planks Lane is a half-hourly service that starts before 7 AM and then finishes, is it 11? Half 8, 9 o'clock at night. The destination at Maryhill and Wolverhampton. So, first of all, we felt that the quality of that service, we didn't want to detract from it. So, unfortunately, we've had to make a decision that we couldn't get a bus up there for the amount of times we would see. And if we did have any bus subsidy, it would run out after the 3 years, at which point it would probably service would cease to be there anyway. So the decision we've taken is that the sustainability of the site, the credentials, because obviously it's not just about public transport, it's also about walking and cycling. So in terms of the gentleman was saying about the high school's less than a kilometre away down there. So with the exception of the bus stops, it meets a lot of the criteria for sustainable travel. So walking, cycling to shops, schools, etc. Unfortunately, it doesn't meet the criteria for a bus stop. However, we felt the quality of that service that is provided, that's on Planks Lane and Brickbridge Lane. Yes, it is 900 metres. Unfortunately, I know the gentleman saying you wouldn't walk down Jiggety Lane because the existing where the site's located, you'd cut through the estate, which would be Millfields Way, Marlbourne, Rosebery. Then you come out the bottom of Jiggety Lane near the bridge. There's a little path that kicks out there. And there's a little footpath over the bridge onto Planks Lane. So you're quite right, yes. It is over the 350, 400 metres we'd expect to see, but given the quality of that service, we didn't want to detract from pulling a service that if we diverted some of the buses, it would be at the detriment of the rest of Womble.
Councillor Steele, Councillor Kelly wants to comment. Okay, sorry. I meant Kelly, not Kenner.
Thanks very much. It was just to add to what Simon said about that, because going back to first principles here, this site was removed from the green belt in 2018 in our site allocations document. It was safeguarded for future housing development. As part of that process, the document was examined by a planning inspector, a full examination was held, and this very matter was actually considered by the inspector. We recognise that guidance is 350 metres. It is guidance, it's not a hard and fast rules for the reasons that Simon's explained. But overall, the site was considered to be a suitable and sustainable site for housing development in the planning balance with the other sustainable benefits that it had. Obviously recognising that it is falling short of that, but ultimately the principle of housing development on this site is already established as a sustainable site.
Want to come back?
Of course, I want to come back. Yeah. That's 7 years ago. So there's been no improvements in bus services at all. In the interest of climate change, surely we should be encouraging people to use public transport. It's very laudable that 40% of this site is affordable housing. Now that suggests, far be it for me to say that people who can afford the affordable housing don't have a car, but they're not, it's one of the things that might go, they might not have a car. And so we're expecting a large proportion of the site to use public transport or their legs. And it's fine that County Highways didn't want to reduce the wonderful service that Womburn's got, and that's in inverted commas from what I can see. And the bus service goes late into the night, but the route you mentioned about getting from Planks Lane to this site was down the wooded area, over a bridge, over the stream and all that. That's wonderful in the dark, isn't it? And it's part of this 900-metre walk, I assume. Is that right?
You want to come back, sorry?
Yeah, so the route through the estate, so you can see it on the plan there. So you can see the red line. So you can see roughly where that estate opposite, you can see where it says Milbourne Way. So you'll be walking along lit footpaths through the estate, then it kicks out onto Jiggety Lane. So it is lit and there is footways, albeit when you get to the bridge, the footways are rather narrow, but there's still footways there and in place. And because of the bridge, the speeds over the bridge are relatively slow. So you're not walking through fields, you are walking through public highway with lit footpaths.
Kelly wants to come back on this one as well. Kelly.
Thank you very much to you, Chair. Just your point on it was 8 years ago that it was removed, absolutely correct. But it's also part of our emerging local plan. So it's been through the whole due process again to be examined against the current evidence base. It's before the inspector at the moment with the evidence base there that says it is still a suitable allocation, hence why we're proposing to allocate it in that plan. So it has had a refresh and a reconsideration of all those factors that you mentioned.
I'm sure that's right, but the distance hasn't changed, has it? So it's still unacceptable in my opinion. I was hoping local members might have more to say. I'm not local to Womburn, you know, I don't know the area, but I mean the silence is deafening. I have serious reservations, but I'd like to hear from other members, please.
Any other speakers? Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Chair. I lived in Wombourne many years ago, so I know Wombourne quite well. I agree actually with Councillor Steele, but I also want to bring up the comment we had from Councillor Merrick with regard to chaos outside the schools, and he mentioned battling traffic. It's a nice village, Wombourne, but it really, in my view, it's almost a town really. But there's a comment here on page 170. Given the availability of a frequent and reliable service to major destinations within a reasonable walking distance, it would be difficult to justify refusal of the application, but we've just been discussing the distance. And I would like to just bring up the other matter of it must be accessible to all ages and abilities, so that's prams, walking, people in wheelchairs, whatever, and this for me doesn't meet that criteria.
Thank you for your comment. Any more speakers? Councillor Kelly.
Okay, I want to come back on my two colleagues, and I agree what they clearly say. And just to reiterate for Simon, that lane is a country track virtually. It isn't mainly fully lit. Italy Lane, it's a, you know, I know Womben really well. It isn't fully, and for residents to walk along there in late night, it is going to be hazardous. But on the other point is the bus service, if Kelly or Ellen can clarify, when would that bus service kick in? Is it after a 30th or 40th housing? He's occupied.
Yeah, through you, Chair. It's an existing service that through this application we're enhancing the bus stops. So there's no provision to enhance the service. It'd be enhancing the bus stops in the area. So there's no provision of a new bus as part of this application. Thank you.
Couldn't the bus service do a quick detour round Gittity Lane, then round to like Millfields and back onto like a circular route that way to get the central of the estate?
No, in a word, there's no capacity because the buses, how they run on their time scales, it wouldn't make the destinations it would need to make at the times it needs to make it. So when they plan the bus routes, they're mapped in the terms of the time scales and what they do. It's a discussion we have had. We've asked that question. I don't want you sitting here thinking we have gone through that. We've tried to get it. Unfortunately, it would be at the detriment to what the existing service is, and despite we think that is a very good service compared to a lot of places, and if you want to take it through in terms of a planning appeal, that service would be considered really good because the destinations it's got and the frequency it's got is considered a very good service. So the walk is a bit further, yeah, I agree. In terms of what you're saying about Giggity Lane, it is lit. I'm looking at it now on Street View. There's a light right on the bridge. So that route is lit from the site down to here. You wouldn't be going down Giggity Lane from the site. You'd cut through the estate. So yes, it's unfortunate we can't get a bus. We'd love to see a bus through there, but that's a small part of the sustainable travel. And I know what you're saying, but we've taken the balanced view there that we don't think if that went to appeal, I think we would struggle to say we think that service, because it's a high quality service, that walk is worth it because of where your destinations to and from Wolverhampton and I think it's Maryhill. Half-hour frequencies is, you know, a lot of places across the county, you're probably looking at an hourly service. Here, you've got a half-hour frequency.
Okay. Okay. Any more speakers, members? No. Yes, yes.
Well, I'm not satisfied, as you can probably gather, and I'm getting a bit of a reputation for being against everything, but I'm only against certain things that are in the wrong place. I am for development in the right place, and if it's sustainable, it's not my words, it's the policies. But in my opinion, in the planning balance, this site isn't sustainable, especially if you haven't got the ability to walk. But I'm not going to put a proposal for refusal because I know it won't count for anything. I'd like to suggest that we defer this to get more information. Otherwise, well, if it's not deferred, I will be voting against.
Are you putting a proposal for deferral?
Yeah, yes. So have I got a seconder?
Well, I'd like to know what further information that you require, councillor, other than the very comprehensive information that is already contained in this report and the sound explanation that have actually been given by our highways professionals. So before you defer, could we have some very clear reasons, clear and precise reasons as to why you want deferring and what information you require? Thank you.
Well, core policy 11 is about sustainable transport, and so it doesn't meet the criteria at the moment, in my opinion. Why have we got a policy of 350 metres if 950 or 1,000 is okay? It's common sense. Doesn't, you know, I don't know what else I can say really. And then EV11 is sustainable travel. Well, it's not sustainable. The service is okay if you live close enough to it to get to it. I just think that we should have some better information to make a proper decision. That's the best I can do, I'm sorry.
Chair, I was just going to say that I've just been advised by Helen that there's no other additional information that we can actually add to the information that we have already got in the report, and therefore, Chair, through you, if it is a proposal, is it a formal proposal for a refusal, or is it just a statement that you're making, Councillor?
It's a proposal to defer this planning application for another month or two, unless we can try and get some sensible proposals for the people who are going to be living on the site. Surely that's what the committee's for.
Chair,
I'm not proposing against.
no, I'm chairman, so I put my opinion forward on it. If we did refer it, it would only be for the month. However, you have proposed a deferral. Do I have a seconder for that deferral? Okay. So members, I'll put this to the rest of you. All those in favour of deferral, please show.
Chair, Chair, I would actually like to say that
Sorry, Chair. Yeah. Before we progress, from the members who voted for deferral, I still need some clarity on what information you're looking for, because our highways colleagues have said that we've reviewed the bus stop location, and I just need to make it clear that we all accept that it falls short of guidance, to be very clear, not policy, guidance. And that aspect of the bus stop is one small element of sustainable development. Our highways colleagues are happy with it, and this is an allocated site for development, not a speculative site like members have seen in the past few months. I'm really unclear what information we can provide you about this bus service, because our highways colleagues have reviewed the bus service, and in their professional opinion, to move it is going to be detrimental to all of the residents of Wombourne, not just the members of the estate. That piece of work has been undertaken by our highways colleagues, so I'm still unclear if I return back with this application in a month, what additional evidence I'm being looked to provide with. So I'll just request a little bit of clarity, please, Chair.
Can you give that clarity again, please?
I think this application should be deferred until we get a more appropriate travel plan and sustainable travel plan for the occupants of the site. Bear in mind that only 60% of the people living on this site will have access to their own transport.
This is a member's decision. It's the members of the planning committee that make the decision. Now, it may be that you ask the question and get the same answers, means we'll have to come back next month with the same answers. However, if that's what committee members wish to do, because you've already had a vote on it, I'm going to proceed.
Chair. Chair. I do apologise. When the matter was actually being put to the vote, at that point I asked for further information. I'm happy that you have provided some information, albeit your officers have indicated that that information is there. However, we respect the committee's decision. We respect the motion that's put forward. It has been seconded. So, Chair, through you, I would like that to be taken through, formally. So, just for clarity, it would be very helpful if I could just have that vote again, because we had the vote as to who was actually in favour. And so, again, for clarity, if we can have those in favour, so it can be recorded properly, please. Okay, so those who are actually in. Oh, sorry.
Point of order.
Yeah, point of order. Clarity, just to support Councillor Chris Steele. Section 106 will give a contribution towards the bus service, whether it's for 3 years afterwards is another matter. There might be more funding later on. So therefore, a contribution gives those residents 3 years travel, if not anything. So there's another issue.
Councillor Kelly, I think we can bring that into where, if we do defer it as part of the argument. We need to move on tonight. So can we, Councillor Evan?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will be quicker. I just want to speak against the proposal to deferment. I've listened to the debate tonight. I just think we've got all the information and we need to make a decision whether that's in favour or against. And the only other thing I'm going to say with this one particularly, it is an allocated site and we don't want to lose the site of the forest for the trees. I think that's something that keeps coming to my mind with this one. Thanks.
I take your point, but when you have the vote, you have the opportunity to vote against. So back to what Hardeep was saying, can you all show those in favour to register that they're in favour of deferral? Please show your hands, please. Those of you that have come for the Wombourne application, that's deferred. If I'll give you a few minutes to leave the room, the rest if you carry on for the rest of the applications. Thank you. All right, we get there. Okay, we proceed with the next application, which is 25/0073/FULM, and this is land off Four Ashes Road, Brood, Stafford. So we go to Jess to outline the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Planning permission is sought for 73 dwellings with associated vehicle access, drainage mitigation, landscaping, play on the way provision, public open space and a pedestrian linked footpath to the Stonebridge estate. And this site would be accessed off Four Ashes Road in Brood. This site is safeguarded for housing within the council site allocations document and is proposed for allocation within the emerging local plan. The proposal includes 43 market homes and 30 affordable homes, which is 40% in line with current planning policy. The Strategic Housing Officer has advised that there's an acceptable housing mix. However, it is noted that the proposal falls short of the 10% requirement for bungalows on site, but this is made up by the provision of alternative ground floor accommodation across the site. The latest 5-year housing land supply position for the council from April 2025 states that a supply of 0.87 years can be demonstrated. As such, the tilted balance is engaged and the council needs to ensure the delivery of dwellings in the most appropriate locations, especially in relation to sustainable development. This site has been identified through the site allocations document and emerging local plan, and is an acceptable location for development. Brood is defined as in core policy 1 as a main service village, as the sites are within walking distance to a range of facilities within Brood and has access to public transport, providing sustainable modes of transport to the larger nearby conurbations such as Stafford and Wolverhampton. The proposal secures appropriate design which blends well with the existing built development along Four Ashes Road and beyond, with a housing density of 30 dwellings per net developable hectare, making effective use of the land. The development would not contravene the space about dwellings guidance and would not result in negative impact upon the nearby residential dwellings, and the proposed landscaping scheme would ensure that the development has a limited impact on the visual landscape. The development has adequately demonstrated that the mitigation provided will result in an appropriate drainage strategy to mitigate the risk of flooding on site following consultations and amendments of the application with the lead local flood authority over the course of the application process. and there are no objections from technical consultees such as the council's tree officer, council's conservation officer and ecologist, nor is there any objections from the county council's highway authority or lead local flood authority. It is noted that there have been objections from local residents with regard to fear of crime resulting from the pedestrian footway that links the site to the Stonebridge estate. However, following careful design considerations, the pathway is of adequate width and is well lit in line with comments from the police on this application, who now raise no objection to the application. This pathway provides active travel routes and connectivity of the site to the surrounding area and is a requirement of the emerging local plan allocation. The application is recommended for approval subject to conditions and a Section 106 agreement to secure appropriate infrastructure, including highway improvements to the local highway network, including nearby bus stops, play on the way provision, sport provision for local services in Brood, Cannock Chase SAP mitigation, healthcare, education, public open space and affordable housing. Helen, if you'd like to move on. We've got some photographs of the application site. The first photograph is of an existing field access into the site, as is photograph number 2. And photograph number 3 shows Four Ashes Road, and just further down on that road is where the proposed new access will be located. This shows the site from looking from Four Ashes Road opposite the cricket club into the site, and the photograph on the bottom shows the location where the pedestrian footway will be located to link the site to the Stonebridge estate. And then these two are just views across the site. This plan is a location plan of the site, which shows the main bulk of the agricultural field, which is proposed for housing, and then to the southwest of the site is the location of the proposed pedestrian footpath. And if you can move on to the next slide, it shows the layout plan. As you can see, there's a flood attenuation pond in the northeastern corner of the site. Then there's some play on the way provision just below that, active travel routes across the whole of the site, housing, and then there's further public open space and the pedestrian footway to the south western part of the site. Thank you.
Thank you, Jess. We have one speaker speaking against this, which is Emma Pitwood. Could you please go to the lectern? Emma, you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. So we object to this on a number of levels. The first being that it will place extra strain on the schools that are already nearly at capacity. You can't get an appointment at the doctor's surgery for love nor money, as my granddad would have said. And at the moment, there's no access to the doctor's surgery because the bridge on Kiddermore Green is closed to access because the part of it has collapsed. The schools, again, there's a secondary issue in terms of the extra houses and the people within them will cause build-up of traffic during pick-up and drop-off times. We already have known that this is an issue for years. You can't get a parking space in the village when the schools are kicking in and kicking out times. We don't have a dentist in the village. We do not have a opticians in the village any longer. The closest opticians and dentists is actually in Codsall, and there is no bus from Brood to Codsall anymore. You would have to get a taxi, and obviously not everyone can afford that. The two remaining village shops are the Co-op and Stars. This is not enough in order to sustain a family. If you want shopping, you're going to have to either go to Cannock or Wolverhampton or further, or Penkridge to get your food shopping. You're going to have to rely on bus transport, and the bus transport is not reliable to an extent that I'm satisfied with. So you'd either have to go further afield or you'll have to get shopping brought into the village. The additional traffic will lead to potential RTCs, especially down the Claygates Road. We've seen in the last 6 months, 2 cars have gone down the Claygates Road and into John Groves' field, and they've actually gone through the bridge. There is limited employment opportunities in Brood. You have to go further afield, either to Codsall, Stafford, Cannock, Penkridge, Wolverhampton. Again, more traffic on the roads, which is bad for the environment and bad for pedestrians. Land issues. So it is actually greenbelt land. It's I live on Oak Road, so I am very, very close to where the development will be. I love that land, particularly because there are lots of cows on it. It is wonderful to be able to go outside and see green space and animals. It is very healing for the soul. It is floodplain. There's a very high water table. It regularly floods, and at the moment it is flooded, especially after the rain last night and the rain we've had over the last month. It does not drain properly, and we are not satisfied that the drainage plans in place are sufficient to deal with this. The street, I'm going to divert a bit and talk about the development on Stonebridge Road, which this development will back onto. The stream was diverted once to build the development on Stonebridge Road and appears to have been possibly re-diverted in the interim within the last few months. I'm not sure if this is accurate. You're going to have to check me on that one. However, yes, so the development on Stonebridge Road would had to be built on piles and rafts. I would suspect, well, I don't know if the development of Four Ashes Road is going to have to do the same. I would suspect it would be, because there is such a high water table. That is going to cause a lot of damage to the environment, going to cause a lot of damage to biodiversity, and we are not happy with it. We are also not happy about the fact that it is, again, sorry, a little bit nervous, you'll have to forgive me. There is no proper infrastructure for drainage, and as we've seen with the regularity which Stonebridge Road floods, we're not satisfied that there's adequate provision for the Four Ashes development to, be drained properly. There are culverts on Stonebridge Road. However, one of the people who objected and raised a comment on the website has said that these culverts are not properly maintained. We are worried that this is going to happen in the future and that there will be more flooding. I'm also concerned about the loss of the rural way of life. We have seen, we are a small rural farming community, and yes, we do need more houses, but we need the socio-economic infrastructure in place to be able to support the people moving into those houses. We don't have that. We feel very isolated and abandoned, and we would appreciate, help in increasing, capacity in the schools, capacity at the doctor's surgery. And we would argue that, are there more suitable brownfield sites available? For instance, a lot of us raised objections to the West Midlands interchange, also built on Greenbelt land, and also feel that brownfield sites would have a lot more connectability than we have in Brood. We just can't support the people in these houses, and we don't feel that these plans are enough to support them. And I yield the last 10 seconds of my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. Just before I go to the speakers, Councillor Davis, because she left the room, you won't be able to speak or vote on this application. Be okay for the others. Thank you. Therefore, we don't have a speaker speaking for it, but we do have the applicant agent, which is Neil Cox from Evolve. Could you go to the lectern? Thank you. You're already there. You have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. The proposed development, located in the main service village of Brood, is for 73 high-quality homes, 40% of which will be provided as affordable housing. Access to the proposed development will be taken via a new priority junction with Four Ashes Road. The site was identified as safeguarded land through the SAD and removed from the Greenbelt in 2018 to meet longer-term housing needs. The suitability of the site for residential development was fully examined by an independent examiner at the examination in public. The application site also represents a proposed allocation for a minimum of 63 homes in the emerging local plan, currently at examination in public. The scheme has been designed to be policy compliant and to meet the key requirements and proposed access active travel measures contained within both the site allocations document and the emerging local plan, including vehicular and pedestrian access from Four Ashes Road, including extension of the footway, walking, wheeling and cycling access through to Stonebridge Road, retention and enhancement of tree and hedgerow boundaries bordering the site, provision of a flood risk assessment and mitigation required as a result of archaeological investigations. The proposal before committee is the result of extensive consultative work with technical consultees, local councillors and the community. The Parish Council and Brood Civic Society both support the proposal. As a result of this consultative process, the proposed development now comes before committee with no objections from technical consultees, including planning policy, conservation, environmental health, highways, flood risk and drainage, ecology, arboriculture, education and healthcare. The application was supported by a robust transport assessment. The Highways Authority has determined the proposed priority junction alongside an extension to the 30-mile-an-hour zone is appropriate, and the development would not give rise to highway capacity or safety issues on the wider network. In respect of flood risk, the applicant has provided a flood risk assessment and a sustainable drainage strategy. Additionally, the flood risk assessment has been fully reviewed by flood modelling experts to provide further consideration of the implications to the Chillington Brook. This concludes the proposal results in no reduction in floodplain capacity or floodplain conveyance, and the development will not adversely impact the flood risk of land or properties up or downstream of the site. The proposals will deliver much needed market and affordable homes to address the council's increased housing needs and current lack of 5-year housing land supply, which stands at just 0.87 years. A local connection requirement will also be secured through legal agreement to give preference to those in need of an affordable home locally. 50% of the affordable homes are delivered as social rent and 50% as shared ownership. 10% of the homes proposed offer ground floor living, split between the tenures. New green and blue infrastructure is provided, including publicly accessible open space in excess of both adopted and emerging open space requirements. This multifunctional space provides sustainable drainage, having regard to climate change, areas for biodiversity enhancement, equipped play and recreation. Through pre-application discussions with the local community, the appearance of the proposed homes was clearly very important. The scheme has been designed to reflect the traditional architectural detailing present in Brood, including the provision of chimneys, bay windows, feature gables, stone sills and porches. Materials details will be further controlled by condition. The scheme is supported by a number of legal obligations agreed by the applicant to secure contributions for education, health, improvements to the closest bus stop, upgrades of Brood sports ground changing rooms, and a flexible contribution towards upgrading local play within the parish. It is hoped that members of the Planning Committee will agree with the Office's recommendation contained within the thorough committee report and resolve to grant planning permission for the construction of 73 homes, subject to the identified conditions and Section 106 obligations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cox. Right, it's over to members, and I'll go to the local members first, which is Councillor Sutton and Holmes. Do you wish to speak first? Councillor Sutton.
Good evening, members. We've had long conversations about this development and how it can best accommodate the needs of the residents of Brood. Sadly, the lack of bungalow provision as opposed to ground level apartments, which appears to be on these plans, doesn't actually sit with the priority of the parish. We need low level, as in bungalows, not apartments, for this area. The big two concerns which were outlined by Ms Petwood were the flooding, which is a huge concern. The field has on a very regular basis and is currently underwater. I've read through the document several times. I've had long conversations. I also assist the Stonebridge Flooding Committee because the brook at the side and that runs through Stonebridge, which is the responsibility of the District Council, has recently had an amount of money to the tune of £60,000 spent on it to ensure that it does not flood to the extent that it is currently flooding at this moment. So again, I appreciate the drainage provision that has been really looked deeply at this particular application. Still have concerns, but in view of the fact that so many experts, so many drainage people have looked at this and gone through it and have sat down with me and actually walked through this particular application, I have real concerns about the depth of this brook and how it floods. But because they've done so much work, I cannot see a reason to object to this application on flooding grounds. I would love to be able to say, please, could we go back to the drawing board and look again? We've already had that recent work on the Stonebridge estate. I'm not sure it's worked, despite this expenditure and the huge cost. The second thing is a huge concern, both for the residents who end up living on this estate, should it be approved, and also the current residents on Stonebridge estate, who have real concerns. I've read through and sat down with the police liaison officer about antisocial behaviour. To such an extent, I know this has bounced around via the planning officer several times because of the police's decision initially not to be happy or comfortable with this application. The paths have been widened, there's more lighting. I still have huge concerns about antisocial behaviour, but again, I'll be led by the experts. So on the basis of what I've spoken about and the work that we've done on this application to get it here, I can only say that I have to support this application and I reserve my right to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton. Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I recognise all the points that Emma made earlier. I've lived there long enough to understand exactly what she was saying. But I also have to agree with my colleague here in that the report covers most of the problems and it deals with them, as I feel, expertly, particularly the flooding, which is obviously of some extreme concern to all of us at the minute. I have to say that I do support approval of this application.
Thank you, Councillor Holmes. Are there any more speakers? Councillor Ashley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of points. I've noted on here it is already designated as safeguarded land. So it's been put down for some years, I assume now, as in fact suitable land for development. The question of the flooding issue, of course, will have to be dealt with if approved by the developers, etc. But the other thing is, I've been trying to work out where it is. Now, I've read that it's close to the cricket ground. Now then, I don't know if you've got the original one that I've got at the bottom of my plan, but I've got a suspicion that the cricket ground is on the other side of the road. It is. And there's a little bit of a building that's at an angle, which I reckon might be the changing rooms. Now then.
It's the cricket pavilion.
Pavilion?
Yes, and that's the entrance there.
Yeah. I've got it, Mr. Chairman. I'll go past it. And I shall go past it on the way back. So the point I'm trying to make, I hope, a nice bigger picture of the parish as such would designate more clearly exactly where the development is within the relationship of the whole parish. I've said it before and I've made a request, but by a bit of detective work, I've actually spotted where it is tonight. Can my comments be taken into account, Mr. Chairman? Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Ashley, you have raised that before. That's taken on board? Yeah. We'll have a look at it again, Councillor Ashley. Thank you. Any more speakers? Councillor Ashley, can you put your microphone off, please? Thanks. Any more speakers? Councillor Steele.
I'll be very short this time, but I agree with Councillor Ashley. I know Brew quite well, and I assume it's quite close to Crestwood Park, isn't it? I worked it out eventually, but it would have been nice to have a bit of a bigger area tonight, because we don't have site meetings anymore, it doesn't appear. So unless you're going to go out and drive there, you won't find it. But that would be very helpful. Thank you.
I think that's been taken on board and noted. Any more speakers? No. I shall go to the vote then. The recommendation is for approval. All those in favour of approval, please show. That's unanimous, I believe, yeah? Yeah. Okay. That's unanimous, so that application is approved. Thank you. Yeah, we're having a comfort break for 4 minutes. Thank you. Councillor Adams. Okay, we're resuming the planning committee. So we're now on the fourth application, which is 25//00512/FUL, which is Bridleways Farm, Sandy Lane, Bishopswood, Stafford. On that one, this is the third application, isn't it? I got that wrong. Yeah. Over to Ellen to outline it. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. This application relates to a steel portal-framed hay and straw storage building situated north of Sandy Lane, Bishopswood. The site is situated in a rural area characterised by open fields around 0.3 miles from Bishopswood village. Just give members some context here. So the red line plan is the application site. The blue line is under the same ownership as the applicant. And you can see this is the line here. This is the road into the village. The application proposes to demolish the existing building and erect 2 4-bed dwellings, one with a detached double garage and one with an attached double garage. This application follows previous applications which were approved by committee, the latest one approved by committee in July 2004, for the conversion of the existing agricultural building into 2 dwellings, with the additional development including the provision of a new driveway to the front of the plots, landscaping, private rear gardens and a detached garage to Unit 1. This further followed a previous application that was also approved in December of 22, granting the conversion of the existing agricultural building again into 2 dwellings. As such, members really must note that the planning history on the site is very much of this nature of the development that's relevant and in front of you today. Rather than a conversion, as approved by committee in 2024, the current application proposes to replace the existing building with 2 new houses of a more traditional design and materials. So I just want to show you the plans for the site. So this is the access which is existing, goes into the site and serves the building. And this is what we're considering tonight, the proposed 2 dwellings here. As you can see, this one has got an attached garage, this one a detached at the end of the drive. Now, members may recall this. So this is the approved scheme, which is quite a modern approach to 2 dwellings here, and is conversion of the existing building that's located on site. And what is now proposed is still 2 dwellings, but more of a traditional form. So rather than converting and modernising the barn and giving you this quite contemporary finish, we are going for a more traditional feel. So that is the plot in front of you there that has the 2 garage spaces which is attached, and this is the one that is with the detached garage. The erection of the new dwellings and garages and the change of use of agricultural land to residential garden represent inappropriate development in the green belt. However, the current proposal is considered to have no greater impact on the openness of the green belt than the 2024 permission, which could be implemented at any time. The current proposal would be taller than the approved proposals. However, it would be smaller in volume and the design and materials would sit more comfortably with the rural character of the area. The gardens to the dwellings would be exactly the same as those approved under the 2024 application and would have limited impact on the openness and the function of the greenbelt, subject to a condition to remove permitted development rights. Taking all of these factors into account, it is considered that very special circumstances do exist which clearly outweigh the policy objection. So again, just to give members some context, on the left-hand side here, this is a view looking along the access road. You can see the building that was proposed for conversion in the rear. And again, on the right-hand side picture, it's this one here. This portal frame here of a demolished building sits in an adjacent site. So this frame of whatever this building was before it was demolished isn't part of the application site. So this is the converted building. So this is what we approved previously through committee to be converted into 2 dwellings. And this is a view looking back along the access road. And again, on the left-hand side on this particular picture, you can see a neighbouring dwelling outside of the application site. Application is recommended for approval, subject to conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ellen. We don't have speakers speaking for and against, but we do have the applicant's agent, which is Stephen Locke from Stephen Locke Associates. If you go to the lectern, please. Stephen, you've got 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members of the committee. My name is Stephen Locke, planning consultant and agent for Mrs. Patricia Spencer, who's the applicant, and she lives at the bungalow next to the site. The applications for change of use and erection of 2 dwelling houses plus associated development with that, as you've heard. The conversion of the barn to 2 dwellings has already been approved under the previous full planning approval, and the applicant could actually commence that development. However, in order to create a more improved and carefully landscaped design, we've submitted this revised application for 2 traditional dwellings that we feel architecturally will provide better planning betterment and improve on the previously approved scheme. Officers have agreed that the extant approval and the improvements to design and the materials provide a compelling case for very special circumstances, which should be afforded significant planning weight. The floor area and volume of the proposed scheme will be a reduction on the approved plans. Therefore, there's an overall positive improvement on the openness of the green belt. And in terms of garden space, it's important that the new dwellings have a reasonable area of amenity for, obviously, for health and well-being of the residents. And the council have acknowledged that will be provided. The proposed gardens lie between the new dwelling units and the existing bungalow at Bridleways Farm, and there's negligible impact on the openness of the green belt. Indeed, a number of other new properties have been built along Sandy Lane, which also have sizable plots in excess of the modest areas that we're proposing for the Bridleways dwellings. In terms of the design of the dwellings units, we've worked closely with planning officers at the council to produce a design which will blend comfortably with the rural setting, and officers have stated that there will be no harm to the character and appearance of the area. There are also no concerns arising regarding neighbour amenity, and there's already an existing good access onto Sandy Lane. Overall, therefore, there's already a full approval for 2 dwellings under the previous application. However, the submitted application is an improvement on the approved scheme with a better standard of design, amenity layout and landscaping. We therefore respectfully ask you to support the application subject to the suggested planning conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Okay, members, I go to the local members first, which is Councillor Sutton and Holmes. Do you wish to speak? Councillor Sutton.
I have no objections to this application, but reserve my right to speak.
Councillor Holmes.
I echo that, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other speakers? Yeah, Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My understanding is that Highways have put in an objection to this one. So I'd just like to explore some of these. I should have them written. Yeah, I've got them written down here. So in the report it says Highways are saying that the vehicle visibility from coming traffic on Old Coach Road is restricted from Sandy Lane, so there's restriction visibility in both directions, which is causing the trouble. And furthermore, Sandy Lane can only accommodate 1 vehicle. There's insufficient width for vehicles to pass. Highways make the point that Sandy Lane is a bridleway rather than a road, which might make this troublesome. I was just wondering if you could expand. Sorry, if you could expand on those points a bit more, especially on what's different. If there's any difference from a Highways point of view for this application to the larger one that was approved in July 2020. Thank you.
Simon.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Councillor, for being so observant. The honest answer is we've got it wrong on this one. The officer who's looked at the application didn't take into consideration the previous approval. So from a fallback point of view, the previous approval will generate the same amount of traffic as this proposal. So from an adopted highway point of view, we would only be looking at the access. So in terms of what we would compare in the previous 2023 application, it's a like for like scenario. So unfortunately, we've been erroneous in making that recommendation, unfortunately. So I apologise for that.
Thank you, Simon, for the explanation. Any more speakers? Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick clarification. So there'll be 4 dwellings on that site, or is it just 2? 2. And that is to knock out the old barns, build 2 big barns, and you're taking the permitted development rights off them. So I've no further debate. I'm happy with that, Chair.
Confirmed. Yeah. Any more speakers? No. Therefore, I'll go to the vote. The recommendation is for approval. All those in favour, please show. That is unanimous. Therefore, the application is approved. Now we come to the 4th application, which is 25/000651/FUL. This is land at Mill Lane, Acton Trussell. And can I hand back to Jeff? Oh, sorry, yes, of course. Ellen wants to address everyone first. Yep.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Just to update members, there's an update on the biodiversity net gain matter in the update list, which has been circulated. So I just want to make sure you're aware of that. But also we're aware of some email correspondence that was sent out to all members, and there's 2 photographs included showing the site that was flooded. I just want to make, as a point of clarity, the area where the site is flooded absolutely does flood. We know that it does. It's floodplain. So we're very aware of that. It's referred to in the officer report in detail. The LLFA have looked at it. There's a reason why the barn was moved out of that area as originally proposed. But I just wanted to point out, as a point of clarity, we are aware it floods. It is floodplain. That's what its purpose is to do. So the photograph showed nothing that we weren't aware of already, and that the barn has been moved out of that location as part of the amendments. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ellen. So it's over to you, Jess.
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks full planning permission for the erection of a horse stable block for the stabling of 2 horses. Application site forms a 0.7 hectare parcel of agricultural land off Mill Lane in Acton Trussell. The site lies outside of the greenbelt within the open countryside. Equestrian uses are generally acceptable, considered to be acceptable within the open countryside, and the stables provides adequate accommodation for the stabling of horses in accordance with DEFRA's guidance for stable sizes, and would provide supplementary feeding for horses in addition to grazing land. The principle of development is therefore considered to be acceptable. There are no concerns relating to the scale of development nor the character of the building within a rural landscape. The site lies partially within flood zones 2 and 3, however the entirety of the built form lies within flood zone 1. As such, there are no concerns relating to flood risk. The environmental health officers raised no objection to the development with regard to noise or odour, and the development accords with the council's space about dwelling standards to all nearby residential dwellings. There are no objections raised by technical consultees, such as the council's ecologist and the County Highway Authority. It is noted that concerns have been raised by neighbouring properties about future uses of the site. However, this is not a matter for consideration under this application, which is being assessed on its own merits. Any other use would need planning permission, and if it is not obtained, we would take enforcement action. This application is recommended for approval subject to conditions. I've just taken some photographs of the site. To the photograph on the left shows both of these photographs. Sorry, show the site towards the floodplain, and then the next photographs on the next slide show the site towards where the stables will be located, which is up against the boundary of Mill Lane, and then the photograph at the bottom shows the access into the site off Mill Lane. This is the application site proposal. There's access via a private track off Mill Lane, which can be seen there. There is some grasscrete proposed for the access through the field to limit impacts upon the grazing areas and the agricultural land. And there's some hard standing proposed outside of the stable, which is fairly commonplace to see outside of stable blocks. And then finally, we've got some elevations and floor plans of the proposed stable block. Thank you.
Thank you, Jess. We have no speakers for and against, neither do we have a speaker with the agent, but Councillor Andy Adams, who is the local member, wishes to address the committee. Can you go to the lectern, please? Thank you. Councillor Adams, you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Planning Committee, thank you for taking the time to hear my submission relating to the application for stables and tack room on Mill Lane, Acton Trussell. I apologise for not inviting you to attend a site visit. It's far too dangerous, and to have a group of councillors on this road, I feared for your safety. Mill Lane is a rat run used by residents from Bednall, Coppenhall, Milford, Wildwood, Walton on the Hill and Acton Trussell, all going to the M6 junction 13. And indeed, exactly the same number of cars on the return journey at night. Mill Lane, it's not a leafy lane, it's a 60-mile-an-hour road as designated by highways, a mile a minute. That is 110 yards in 3.25 seconds. County Council claim there have been no accidents on the road. Perhaps they can explain then why they spent £500,000 nearly on repairing the bridge. In the last 3 years, there have been 3 separate serious accidents. A transit van had to be pulled out of the river on the last but one accident. And this is all approximately 200 yards from the entrance and exit to this proposed site. The access to the road is from a farm track and it has a splay of approximately 20 feet. Remember that 3.25 seconds and 110 yards. Horse boxes, horses, this is dangerous. Flooding. Once again, county do not report on flooding as an issue, may well be in the floodplain. This despite the fact they've spent close on £700,000 on flood defences and systems, avoiding flooding up just 900 yards upstream from this field. I did send a photograph, but obviously you can't see it, but believe me, it does flood, it was underwater. The area of grassland is insufficient to support grazing requirements as by DEFRA for 1 horse, let alone 2. Now, the important thing for us here, we talk about BNG and you seem to think that you've got an acceptance on this. Currently, on this proposal, there's a 12.64 BNG loss, which should be a 10% gain. So on that basis, unless we have got a concrete proposal, which is not actually, we approve it and then we get the BNG, I think the BNG should be put in place before the council approve it. That needs to be one of the conditions. That sort of concludes what I would like to say about this application. Don't want horses in a situation where if someone came down Mill Lane on the wrong side of the road, the stable block is going to be right where they're going to hit them because they're going to swerve into the hedge because the hedges have almost been demolished anyway, right by where the stable block is going to be. Thank you for hearing my comments.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. We don't have the other local member tonight, which is Sam Harper Wallace. Therefore, members, does anybody wish to speak on this? Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Chair. I have some grave concerns on this, on not only the highways issue, but on other elements of habitat, because, as I say, the buildings, if the planners can go back to the specs of the buildings, there's no definite definition of measurements of how high those buildings will be or long. And to that point, you know, they could end up being metres high and metres long, taking up a lot of that land and causing further issues. A further point is that land, like the speaker says, is losing by BNG where it should be gaining. And what about the protection of species? You know, that is some of the concerns I have regarding that.
Ellen?
Yeah, of course, happy to address that. Through you, Chair. They're scaled plans, so you can't build them to whatever height you want to. They are restricted by the scale on the plan, so the heights will be set. So just because you've got an approval, what we are showing you there is just obviously a section of the plan. There's a scale bar and a scale wall, so to give members comfort, they can't be built at any height, width, length. It's a scaled plan, so it won't be anything greater in proportionality than what you see in there. I need to come back on the BNG point. I think it's worth a bit of context here. Members are very used to seeing sites that come forward with the 10% sorted and agreed at the plan making stage, and that is borne about by developers working through a scheme in order to give you the comfort that it can be achieved. On the major schemes, the big housing schemes, for example, that often we see, it's quite easy to achieve the 10%. It's just not possible on a lot of schemes, and it is not part of the planning approval process to rectify that separate secondary legislation that sits outside of this. What we have to do is look at the site on a baseline metric point, and this is what I'm referring to in the update list. We have to have the comfort, and when I say we, it's our senior ecologist who is trained in this field, if you'll excuse the pun, to know what the baseline is. So what's there now, what have we got on site, and how do we achieve that 10% uplift? So by knowing what the baseline is, we can then say, right, by doing X, Y, or Z, we've got our 10%. It's not secured at planning application planning application time. It is just secured by the informative that you'll note within the report. So it's absolutely normal practice for this to be the case. Decisions that are made in the department every day on this basis. We have a really strong, robust legislative framework that sits alongside it, and a really strong, robust enforcement process if it's not met. So I 100% appreciate it's unusual for you to see reports where that 10% is not met and what the plans are demonstrating that, but that's normal practice. It's just not what you've been accustomed to seeing. So I hope that gives you some comfort. The key is that we've got the baseline, and we do, so therefore we can enforce and make sure the 10% as a minimum is achieved. If that can't be achieved on site, which again is an option, there is the option to then purchase those units off site. Again, pretty commonplace. So hopefully that gives you the comfort, Councillor Kelly. Thank you.
Come back. I'm just concerned that those horse sheds could turn into dwellings, because if they're not specifically heighted and length, they could then turn them into bungalows, barn conversions, and we don't want to be in a situation where that could happen.
They, again, just to reiterate, they are scaled, so they can't be built bigger than that to look like a domestic scale of a house. But it's not a barn, so you can't have a barn conversion, it's a stable. You'll see the conditions restrict any permitted development change of use. Because of the date it's approved, it doesn't benefit from that. And if it was to be changed to anything other than a stable, it needs planning permission. So we would assess it on its merits, and if it goes on without the benefit of planning permission, again, we've got enforcement. Thank you, Chair.
Last point, Chair. Can we put a condition where those materials that those built are of wood?
There's a condition to detail the materials, the finished materials, so we do that as a matter of course. It's not currently proposed as wood. I don't know how that would sit with the welfare of the horses or the stability, but we can certainly look at the materials. That's something that we'd consider. Thank you.
Because Maz barns are built of wood in areas that I know of within Penkridge, not fully brick and stuff like that.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Any more speakers? Councillor Sutton.
Yeah, forgive me, Chair. Been on the planning committee for a terribly long time, and we have always applied when it's applications for stables previously, to my understanding, to have movable temporary planning permission of 25 years for movable stables. And certainly on the horses that I keep, the stables I move around is beneficial to their grazing habits. So they are built of wood. So my question is I keep looking at this and thinking, why are we giving planning permission for a permanent structure, which would impact on the BNG of the location, when an alternative wooden structure that is more beneficial, certainly for the horses, to move them to new grazing paddocks, etc., especially as Councillor Adams has initially or indicated, and I can't work out the size of this particular field, but it's not sufficient to maintain a year-long grazing for the horses. So I just wondered whether that has been discussed or option.
We have to assess what's put to us on its merits. We can't then alter the proposal. We have to assess that in terms of its appropriateness. So what we are looking at, we consider to be appropriate. In terms of grazing, it's touched on in Jess's presentation in the report. There'll be additional supplementary grazing as well. And there is the reference to the DEFRA guidance, and we're comfortable that it meets that. Again, we always look into that and make sure that that's covered, but it is separate legislation that sits outside of planning as well as the planning permission. But in terms of what is proposed here, in its location, it's wholly acceptable in our opinion. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Any more speakers, members? No. Councillor Kelly.
Can I just clarify, can we put a condition that it's wood then, or not?
No, it's the finished material that we're looking at. So
Yeah.
we can make an assessment on the appropriateness of the materials. What they've applied for is a brick built building, but it depends what you refer. It's not going to be built out of wood. It could potentially, as an option, be a brick finish, but you know that what they've applied for is a brick built stable of that permanence. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. As there are no more speakers, I'm going to put it to the vote. Can you switch your mic off, please?
Sorry.
That's okay. So the recommendation is for approval. All those in favour of approval, please show. Okay. All those against? No. Abstentions? So that application is approved. Thank you. Go to the next application, which is 230179 OUTMEL or I. This is a major application. It's land east and west side of the A449 Penkridge. Can I go to Mike on this one, please?
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members.
Sorry, Chair, can we just pause and get Amrit in, please? With Amrit from County Highways needs to just join the meeting, so if we just get her a second, that'd be great.
Thank you, Chair. Right. The application site, we can see the photographs in front of us. Here's a view from within the site to the north of Law Phase 1, looking north across the western portion of the development site. The A449 is located beyond the hedgerow, evident in the middle distance. As we can see here, the site largely comprises pasture land. Moving on, the top photograph shows a view north along the A449, adjacent to Old Drayton Farm, which sits outside of but adjacent to the application site. The bottom photograph shows a view eastwards across the southern part of the site to the north of Old Drayton Farm. The site, as evidence, also comprises pasture, which falls towards the River Trent, and in the distance, rising up on the other side of the valley, we have Cannock Chase and the associated ANOB. Here's a further view along the A449 into the junction with Lower Drayton Lane, looking southeast across the eastern part of the site. We have managed hedgerows which form the boundary to the highway, and crop planting beyond within the fields. The northern boundary of the site, which is formed by this junction with Lower Drayton Lane, which turns to the east, and bridleway number 33 Penkridge Parish, which runs to the west. Two photographs from Lower Drayton Lane looking southeast across the eastern portion of the site. The bottom photograph shows the rounded structures that comprise the anaerobic digester plant, which is, as you can see, that those sort of buildings there. In the foreground, we also have the buses associated with Lower Drayton Farm application, which is also to be considered this evening. The play barn, which is also located within this complex, is located behind the bush. This is a photograph again from within the Lower Drayton Farm complex, looking southwards. The site lies beyond the bus depot, and the photograph here shows a view looking southwest from the bridleway, looking across the western portion of the site. In the middle distance, we have the raised railway line, whilst Phase 1 Bloor Homes development is just about visible to the left-hand side, adjacent to the hedgerows there, so in the far distance there. The application is the fourth, I believe, of this site that we've considered now, and it comprises the area we can see here within the red line. This is several agricultural fields, associated outbuildings, areas of hard standing, and a motocross track, which combined have a total area of 51.2 hectares. The site is located to the north of the village of Penkridge, which you can see Phase 1 of Bloor, just in there. There we go, where the arrow is pointing. It straddles the A449, which runs through the centre of the site. And as I mentioned a moment ago, the application form site forms part of a wider 69.5 hectare proposal, which extends southwards beyond the site to both the east and west of the A449, as detailed within the environmental statement that accompanies all four applications which have been considered by the local planning authority. This application, which is submitted in outline, with all matters except access reserved, proposes the demolition of farm buildings and associated structures and delivery of up to 750 dwellings. Included, there is a minimum of 40 units of specialist older people's housing, a first school, a nursery, a community hub of up to 1,000 square metres, which would incorporate 500 metres squared of convenience retail and 500 of other commercial premises, a workspace, food takeaway, etc. We also have a mobility hub, public realm, residential uses, a community park, associated access, drainage, green and blue infrastructure, including sports pitches, which are one of the shades of green. Next to, if we move over from the sort of purple blob, which is the school, to the west, there is a large green rectangle. Those are the sports pitches with associated changing facilities. And then immediately to the south of that area, sort of purple star, there's a multi-use game area that's also proposed within that location. The points of vehicular access, which are for consideration as part of this submission, we have two roundabouts, two four-arm roundabouts, the northern and southern elements, adjacent to the local centre there, which is, as I mentioned, the school with the purple blob, and the red area, which is the later living accommodation. From these points of access, residential development is indicatively shown to be served by a primary street, which is the purple loops that go through the site there. No, sorry, they're the indigo loops that link around the local centre to the eastern portion of the scheme, and then on the western portion it goes away from the northern roundabout through the scheme and then links back into phase 3 of Bloor Homes, which is the outline application we approved at the end of last year. Here we have the building heights parameter plan, which demonstrates the maximum building height across the site. Obviously, we've seen this plan before. For this specific application site, adjacent to the A449, the dwellings are proposed to be up to 3 stories in height, which is a maximum of 12 metres, which reduces to the site's boundaries to 2.5 stories or 10 metres. The sole area shown to be up to 4 stories, which is a maximum of 15 metres, is the later living accommodation within the local centre. The heights comply with the landscape and visual impact assessment, which comprises part of the environmental statement, and the matters arising through its consideration as detailed within the landscape impact section of the officer report. In localised design terms, however, the variation in building heights and the locations identified for such provide flexibility to ensure a varied street scene offering visual interest and landmark buildings where appropriate. Moving on to the proposed alterations to the A449 highway corridor, we can see that traffic speeds gradually are proposed to be reduced to the north of the site from 60 to 30 miles an hour when passing into the scheme. The northern roundabout will act as a gateway feature into the new community. The road carriageway will be reduced as it passes through the allocation site, where for the stretch of road between the 2 new roundabouts, such would facilitate the introduction of a central refuge, a pre-meter shared pedestrian cycle paths on either side of the road, and wide verges to incorporate street trees and bus stops, service laybys, etc. Dedicated crossing points, including the Pegasus crossing, which is the kind of goldy brown colour proposal on the left-hand side there, will be provided to aid movements across Stafford Road, which is to include signalised crossing points at key desire lines to ensure safe and convenient active travel movements between the development areas. A traffic regulation order would be required to remove parking spaces to the north of the most southern crossing point to enable the widened foot cycleway to be delivered. This matter will be dealt with as part of Section 278 works. Finally, existing field gate accesses made redundant as a consequence of this development are recommended to be secured by a condition to be closed. Turning to consideration of the scheme's impact, the material planning considerations arising are lengthy and complex, and I will not seek to reiterate them here, given such are detailed within the officer's report. But in broad terms, as we've noted a few times tonight, in terms of principle, the council's current housing land supply position stands at 0.87 years. As a consequence, the policies within the development plan are no longer considered to be up to date. Housing policies, sorry, not all of them. Therefore, housing policies within the NPPF have primacy, with the so-called tilted balance engaged. In such circumstances, permission must be granted for housing-led development unless any adverse impact of approving the proposal would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefit. Having regard to the sustainability of the location, making effective use of land, securing well-designed places and providing affordable homes. Working through these points in turn, the location is considered sustainable, given its proximity to Penkridge, with evidence to demonstrate such included within the council's emerging local plan, given the site forms part of the future wider proposed allocation as discussed. In terms of effective use of land, the density, ecological, arboricultural, sports and education provision, drainage and flood risk and highways impact of the development have all been considered by relevant consultees to be acceptable, with conditions to secure such recommended as necessary. In terms of securing well-designed places, the parameter plan, master plan, design guide and specific architectural details submitted with the application have evolved through work with the applicant and the independent design consultants, HIAS. The master plan is now reflective of what is proposed within the emerging plan and is considered to secure future high-quality design. The applicant has agreed to a number of extensive and varied Section 106 contributions, which includes contributions as detailed within the officer's report towards healthcare, indoor sports provision, community building enhancement of the Hayling Dean Centre, travel plan monitoring and education contributions. Finally, in terms of delivering affordable homes, the scheme will deliver 40% along with 10% single-storey dwellings. Given, therefore, the ability of the scheme to comply with all facets of the tilted balance, it follows that permission must be granted. As such, the recommendation is one of conditional approval subject to the signing of a Section 106 agreement and a UU to address recreational harm to the Cannock Chase SAC. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike, for that comprehensive report. We have no speakers at all speaking against for or the agent, and we don't have the local member here tonight, which is Sam Harper-Wallis. So it's over to you, members. Does anybody wish to speak on this application? Councillor Kelly.
Sorry, Chair. I'm not against this application. All I want is the betterment for the villagers of Penkridge. Now, the one question I want to ask is, on the paperwork it states by the SSDC Environmental Health Protection Officer, the odour assessment submitted with the application indicated that there should be a 140-metre buffer zone to protect the residents from, and the sports pitches, from airflow from the AAD plant. There's my one question, has that been adhered to? Because looking at the development, I'm sure there's properties closer than that.
Mike.
Through you, Chair. In short, yes. They have complied with their odour assessment and the distances comply with their requirements. The sports pitches form part of that buffer zone effectively, but there is sufficient distance between the AD plant and the proposed dwellings to meet the detail need.
Just for a quick point, Grant, so there's going to be a big hill in front of the AED plant to send the air upwards, and with trees and planted all over that.
The mitigation, for you, Chair, the mitigation required within the odour assessment will be fully secured through the reserve matters, specific detail, obviously coming through that. But there is a requirement, because it's within the environmental statement, for the applicant to fully adhere with those requirements. Now, in terms of what is necessary, obviously we have the buffer, we've got sufficient distance there. The prevailing wind within this location doesn't go in that direction. It goes the other way over towards the M6 there as a general rule. So it won't be a continuous issue, but the applicant will be required through reserved matters to fully implement all mitigation measures as needed to secure the future reasonable amenity of residents.
Okay, second question, thank you. On the issue of the SUDS, because it does state by the reports SSC flood risk that blue and what's names SUDS need to be implemented, blue and green, to protect the area from, because it is a major high flooded area.
Through you, Chair. The flooding area relates to the right-hand side of the picture, so the darker green. So that is floodplain, well, parts of it are floodplain. There is no real development proposed within that area. There's some landscaping works, some benches, etc. Details of which will come through in due course. In terms of the specifics of the scheme itself, the LLFA have been very thorough on this one to ensure that there will be no increase in the water flow rate coming off the site. So, for instance, you'll see within the report there was quite a discussion regarding the pond located to the north of the school site. Again, the purple blob, and then there's a little blue circle just to the north of it. That's a retained feature within the scheme, not linked to the drainage scheme, but it's sought to be retained in order to help with the retention. I bring it up because obviously there's a lot of discussion within the report regarding the relationship of that pond with the school, which we've thought to address. Obviously, it's a great crested new pond, which is why it needs to be retained in the first place. But that level of detail can't show where we've been with this scheme in terms of flood and drainage. It's been fully assessed, long and short.
Thank you. The last 2 points is the active travel route. Firstly, there's no active travel route from the junction and the bridle path from Lower Drayton Lane to the first island, which is a concern. And the second point is to make it cohesive with the rest of the village. Why can't there be a bridge going across the river bank that makes it more inclusive, including the old part of the village with a new part of the village?
Do you want Highways to address that? Okay.
If I can add on to this, Steve, don't you think the two islands are a bit close together on that point? Because an island at the junction where you've got industrial units, either the bus route, a play barn, BT communications, pole installers, as well as other units down there, that island would be better served at that junction.
Thank you. I'll just introduce myself as I was late in. I'm Amrit Piahotsky from Staffordshire Highways. Thank you, Councillor Kelly, for your questions. With regard to the spacing of the roundabouts, they are in line with standards in Design Manual for Roads and Bridges. Also, they act as traffic calming features, so actually the proximity works well for the site. The active travel route to the north, there actually wasn't anything being proposed originally, so we have got footway provision now. There's no further cycle connectivity, so it didn't really make sense to have the active travel route just ending. You've got pedestrian route, and then you've got the Pegasus crossing and pedestrian crossing as well, so that deals with that bit. Sorry, did I miss part of your question?
That's fine. The question I'm really posing is for people to like get to Penkridge Middle School, they've got to go all the way out to the estates, all the way down the 449, then through the centre of the village to get to the schools, whereas a shorter route would be more, i.e. safer, healthier than going that long route.
Kelly?
I'm aware of this aspiration. It was suggested as part of the local plan to look at it. It's not included because it's not proportionate to the scheme. It would cost an absolute fortune. It'd be totally disproportionate for the cost of from this site, and there is no demonstrated need for it. It would be a nice to have. I appreciate that, but actually it would be hard to justify this site providing a piece of infrastructure that significant, particularly when they've got all the active travel measures that they're already proposing, which are already acceptable. So we do recognise it has been a long-standing aspiration, but it would not meet the legal tests to ask this site to provide that bridge, because there are suitable alternatives. Hence why it wasn't in the local plan in later iterations.
Any more questions?
No, Chair, I yield on that and accept and approve this application.
Any more speakers, members? Councillor Burnett.
Thank you, Chair. Just an observation. 36% of the land is grade 2, very good quality. Thank you.
Comment on that? No. Speakers? No. Therefore, the recommendation is for approval. Going to the vote. All those in favour of approval, please show. That's unanimous, so therefore the application is approved. Thank you. Right, last but one application, which is 25/00502/OUT. This is for Green Acres, Light Ash Lane, Oldham. Over to you again, Jess, on this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks outline planning permission with all matters reserved for one self-build dwelling house off Light Ash Lane, Coven. The application site lies just outside of the Coven settlement boundary in the West Midlands Greenbelt. The site, as existing, forms part of the garden for Green Acres, which is the dwelling adjacent to the red line boundary. The council can currently only demonstrate a 0.87-year housing land supply, and as such, the tilted balance is in effect for applications proposing new dwellings. The tilted balance sets out that new dwellings should only be refused where there are significant reasons to justify refusal. On this basis, the applicant has put forward a case for grey belt development under paragraph 155 of the NPPF. The application is considered to be grey belt development, which complies with all of the requirements set out within paragraph 155 of the NPPF. The proposed development is therefore considered to be acceptable, subject to other material considerations being satisfied, and does not form inappropriate development within the green belt. The development is not considered to harm either visual or residential amenities, subject to appropriate design and layouts that would be secured via subsequent reserved matters applications. The development also raises no material concerns in relation to parking or highway safety, also subject to appropriate design of the access at reserved matters application stage. There are no objections from technical consultees such as the council's tree officer or ecologist, nor any from the County Council Highway Authority. As the dwelling is proposed as a self-build property, it is exempt from the requirement to provide a 10% uplift of BNG at the site. On this basis, the application is recommended for approval subject to conditions and a Section 106 agreement to secure Cannock Chase SAC mitigation measures and to ensure that the dwelling is secured as a custom self-build unit.
Thank you, Jess. On this one, we have no speakers, so it's over to the local members, which is Councillor Sutton and Councillor Holmes. Do you wish to speak?
I have no objection to this application, but reserve my right to speak.
Councillor Holmes?
Again, I support my colleague. Thank you.
Okay, any more speakers? No. So the recommendation is for approval. All those in favour of approval, please show. That's unanimous, so that application is approved. Thank you. Come to the last application, which is 25/00505/FUL. This is Select Bus Services, Lower Drayton Farm in Penkridge, and this one's with Ellen. Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you, Chair. The application site comprises of an irregular piece of land measuring approximately 0.41 hectares, which forms part of an operational bus depot and is occupied by buses, employees' cars and an office and welfare building. This slide just shows you the location of the site and the access from the existing highway. As you can see, it's quite separated from the main A449. The site is located south and east of Lower Drayton Farm, and the vehicle access is via the existing track, which does join onto the A449 to the west. The site is within the open countryside. However, the principle of change of use of the land immediate to the south of the site has previously been established with approval in 2016. The proposal to install electric vehicle charging stations and to change the use of the existing agricultural building is considered to be acceptable in principle and would not harm the landscape. This partly retrospective proposal to extend the bus depot would have a material effect on the character and appearance of the landscape and would therefore be contrary to policy OC1. However, taking into account the wider site context set amongst the buildings and equipment of Lower Drayton Farm, this harm is considered to hold limited weight in the planning balance. Just so remember some photos. So this is a view looking towards the site from the south and a view of the access track which runs to the western side of the boundary. Here you can see some of the buses located upon the site from the side entrance. And this shows you some of the car parking that goes on at the site at the moment, which is employee parking and the welfare buildings. This is the area where the buses will be parked, and the area on the left-hand side is where the proposed charging equipment will be located. So given that the proposals would allow the bus operator to continue operating its fleet with the addition of electric bus service to provide public transport in rural areas of the district, it is considered that the benefits of the development significantly outweigh the harm to the landscape when assessed against the provisions of the development plan as a whole. There is no undue concerns arising with regards to highway safety, residential amenity, arboriculture or ecology. It's therefore considered the proposal complies with the provisions of the NPPF and the relevant policies of the core strategy. Approval is therefore recommended. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ellen. There are no speakers on this and the local member isn't here. So it's over to you again, members. Anybody wish to speak? Councillor Steele.
I fully support this recommendation. Possibly the buses can go over to Wumburn, and that really would be sustainable.
Councillor Kelly.
Chair, I'm fully supporting this application. My only one concern would be is there a distance that, because they're having a substation put in, aren't they, that is far enough away from the AD plant? Because one thing we don't want is a substation going up near to a AD plant and causing further issues.
Thank you, Chair, through you. Yeah, it's been considered. They're comfortable with the distance and its location. Obviously, again, there are elements of separate legislation that will cover that as well, but no, we're comfortable with that. Thank you, Chair.
Any more speakers? No. Again, we move to the vote. Recommendation is for approval. All those in favour of approval, please show. That's again unanimous, so that application is approved. Do you want to do item 5? Yeah. You want to do it? You want me to raise? Yeah. We're on to item 5 on the agenda. Ellen's going to address the committee.
Thank you, Chair. Just by way of my update report, not a lot to report as you can see, but we're currently running with one vacancy, which we're going out to recruitment. I realise that I put, which is actually true, that the member of staff resigned, and that sounds dramatic, but she just left to go travelling, so she didn't quit enough. So yeah, we're going to recruit to her post. So I just wanted to clarify that. You members will be aware that we had the gift of the new NPPF draft just before Christmas. as is custom and practice from MHCLG to deliver this kind of Christmas gift to us. So we are in the process of reviewing all of the questions, and there will be a member session carried out on that in the chamber. The monthly stats you will see all at 100%, looking very positive at the moment, and the national picture is one that is quite positive. I'm not going to touch on the appeal decisions unless members have got specific questions. The first, the one application, which was the Boscobel Lane, Bishop's Wood, is still an ongoing situation with a legal challenge. So we'd prefer to update members with that when we've got a full picture and we can give you a comprehensive review. So other to that, Chair, that's it for the update report. Thank you.
Okay, members, before we close in, are there any other questions to officers? Councillor Kelly.
Thank you. Just like to appraise the officers from the appeals. You know, having those won and dismissed is great. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I close the meeting. Thank you very much.